Some of the things I want to talk to you about today are just personal questions I've had, and you can shed some light on. You're going to speak on behalf of the entire community for some of these groups, which people love to do, right?
Oh boy!
And then the second thing is you and I are in kind of similar stages, and so I'm going to ask just your wisdom on some things because you have some experiences that I don't have, and you've got some. I've made some mistakes along the way, and I'm looking back, going, "Oh, dude, what do I do now?" And then that's where you are because your kids are younger than mine, so. Broad picture, OG Navy SEAL teams, CIA operator stuff. Like you've been all over the world. For our listeners, real quick, how would you parse off the difference between like Navy SEALs versus then we went and did CIA operation stuff. Then I worked for some private. Like what's a quick way to just say here's the difference between those things?
Well, here's the difference between the SEALs and the agency,
right? And then private stuff.
Well, so kind of like my evolution into the agency was I was a SEAL for 6 years. That's basically kicking doors and sniper stuff, direct action, kind of the just first guys in special operations stuff. And then from there I got into the private stuff. But the private stuff was still the agency stuff. So you got to think of it like this. Like there was all these companies, Blackwater, SOC, Triple Canopy, MVM, DynCorp, right? And so that would be, we're called contractors, government contractors. So it's really not any different than like if you have a contractor to build a house.
I was going to say, when I think of contractor, I think of a sheetrock guy.
You go to a general contractor, and then he gets the guy that's going to do the bathroom, and he gets the plumber and the electrician and the roof and the windows and all these different people, right? And so when the government needs things done, they go to a contractor like Blackwater, and the Blackwater under the umbrella at Blackwater or DynCorp, MVM, or any of these places, it's what do you need done? What kind of guys are you looking for? Do you want law enforcement type guys? Do you want regular infantry type guys? Do you want DEA guys? Do you want FBI guys? Do you want special operations guys? What do you want? What's the job? What kind of clearance do they need to have? And so the agency needs special ops guys with a high clearance level, and so that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. And so it started at Blackwater and then moved over to some other companies. And then I left, did some anti-piracy stuff off the coast of Yemen and Somalia. Did that for not very much time at all, 2 pumps.
As a civilian, why would the entity I pay my taxes to need to go outsource what I would consider one of their chief jobs, which is to keep us safe? Why would they need to outsource that?
Yeah.
Is it a manpower thing? Is it we can't do it because of our laws and we need somebody else to just take care of it? Like why would they outsource that?
I mean, it's a little bit of everything. One, your tax dollars, it's actually cheaper to get government contractors in because then they're not paying for benefits, retirements, any of that stuff.
Oh, so it's cheaper for me if I go hire my own drywall guy, my own roofer guy, versus just hiring a GC and saying, I'll give you 10%, just take care of all of it.
Yeah, because we're not an employee, Okay. And so so I know that's really boring, right? That's probably not the answer you're looking for.
I was hoping you'd be like, but no, I always just wondered, why do we have all these contracts and why do we pay all these things? Well, it's very similar. I like that analogy. It's like buying a house or building a house.
There's a lot of reasons. That is probably the number one reason that, it's like from a broad spectrum, of all government contracting. But then, there's also plausible deniability with things like CIA. There is a lot of red tape that the government can't get around, but a civilian contracting company can get around that. And so, the U.S. military can't do certain things. Central Intelligence Agency doesn't want to pay credit for certain things. And so government contractors is kind of, how that kind of stuff can be done.
My career was in colleges, universities, and there was a trickle of students coming in that were veterans. And then over the last 20 years, obviously more and more combat veterans have come in who are rolling off. More and more, National Guard folks are rolling in. And then it became en masse, right, as people started coming in. I noticed 2 things happen. One is, it boggles my mind, again, as a taxpayer, when I think of the taxes I write every year. I just paid my taxes recently, right? Just filed all the paperwork. That these men and women who go and put the two most important things in their world on the line for me, which is their time, right? Like, they take 4 years out of their life, their earning potential, all the stuff, and they put it over here, right, for service. And then the potential that you can get killed doing that, right? Then to come back, and we've seen like an influx of like you special ops guys who like starting businesses and trying to do this and do this with that training they got. As a taxpayer, my first thought is, why in the world are those guys having to go make money? They've done their thing. Like, if I as a taxpayer have one thing I would like to put on the table, it would be, you get a house at least, for God's sake, right? Or you get insurance, for crying out loud. You get a salary. You've done the thing, right? You've done 6 years, a decade, or whatever it is. And so, am I wrong that you get off and you get a high five and like, go get them, and then it's out in the wild?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're. I mean, look, there's two sides to this. If you just hand them everything too, then you are victimizing an entire demographic of people.
Okay. So not saying, okay, now you have to continue to go earn.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of my thought.
Okay.
I mean, I think they're, with the same caveat to that, is that the assistance that you do get is complete garbage.
Yeah, it's silly.
I mean, you got guys, I've had guys that I know that are missing limbs, missing their leg, missing their arm, maybe both, and they don't even have full medical benefits, and then you get a guy who sat behind a desk for 4 years and maybe went to Afghanistan and maybe heard a rocket explode 5 miles away, and they're getting full benefits.
So it's kind of just a mismatch.
Yeah, I mean,
it
kind of comes down, a lot of the times the way it works out, unfortunately, is the guys that sit behind the desk or the guys that are not in a combat MOS are really good at working the system. Just like when you go, I mean, everybody complains about government employees, the post office, the DMV, law enforcement. I mean, where it's really hard to fire a government employee, and they learn how to work the system. Guys that are actually out there fighting, they don't have time to work the system, to learn the system. They don't want to be in the system. They're not the turds that are going to medical, building a medical record so that they can get a retirement. And so what happens is you'll get these guys that, like I said, the desk jockeys, and they'll build these, and not all of them. I'm not saying that about all of them.
Of course.
But they'll build a file. They'll build a case. They'll spend 4 years. Oh man, I fell down the stairs. Oh, I bumped my head on a filing cabinet. I mean, they'll do like this, and then guys like myself who are in special ops, we don't want to go to medical. We don't even want to report any injuries because that might get you pulled off of an op, which the whole reason you join is to go on ops. And so.
And that costs you down the road, right?
Oh yeah.
Whenever you're circling back, like, well, you should have filed that then.
Yep, exactly.
Wow. So one thing that has begun to frustrate me over the years is it's kind of like the high five is the phrase, "Thank you for your service."
Mm-hmm.
And so it becomes like here you go, and that way I can. It's like a nod, right? You nod to somebody. As a civilian, do you have a couple of ideas of ways I can love and be a good community member to folks coming back? And it can be as simple as the guy with still wearing the Vietnam vet hat, the real tall one, like in at the Walmart, right?
Yeah.
Where I can acknowledge that guy, all the way to one of my coworkers just gets hired, and I find out we're having lunch that they were deployed a couple of times. What are ways I can, as a civilian, not just say thank you for your service and then go about my day?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, just find different words to say. You know what I mean? Like the Vietnam
Am I
generation.
wrong on that?
No, you're not.
Okay.
But speaking for the veteran community too, though, I mean, you're only going to get so much. It was a voluntary program. Nobody twisted your arm, to go in there, unless maybe you're in the Vietnam generation.
Sure.
But, the big saying with the Vietnam generation, what was it? It was welcome home, right? So when you see that guy, instead of saying, thank you for your service, which isn't bad, nobody says it, barely anybody actually just says it. I don't know
wow.
why.
Okay.
But, just go up to them, be like, hey, welcome home, man. Appreciate what you did. Or, the newer generation coming back from the GWAT, just, hey, I just want you to know I really appreciate what you did over there, and
So acknowledgement still
acknowledgement is great.
Okay.
That's all you can ask, and as a veteran, for all veterans, like that's all you can ask is
it embarrassing or annoying if somebody picks up somebody's tab?
no, I think it's great.
Okay. All right.
It just shows appreciation. And I think that's, other than all the psychological problems and stuff like traumatic brain injury and the stuff that you see, I think a lot of vets that's what they feel. They carry a lot of resentment because they don't feel appreciated, and I think a lot of them don't feel appreciated. I mean, you see the news cycle, you see the social programs that are benefiting people that aren't even citizens of the country, and it's like, well, what about can
me?
I just,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I could get a new prosthetic,
Right.
like leg, maybe? No? Okay, I'll go find a nonprofit to do it. But I don't have a prosthetic leg.
No, I know. Yeah.
But yeah, and that it'll carry a lot of it causes a lot of resentment, but for any vets that are listening, I mean, it's not getting any better. So there's lots of other avenues.
Well, and for me, that becomes an important thing to communicate to our neighbors, right, or to the civilian neighbors, of which there's way more civilian neighbors than there are not, right? Which is, take the time. Like if you walk into a restaurant and see somebody with a hat on, pick up their meal. Like, do that, right? That's not a lot. And if you have a neighbor, make sure you reach out and say, hey, just have your kids say thank you, right? Like little things like that.
Man, even if it's just on the right days.
Exactly.
Memorial Day, that's a big one. For anybody who fought and lost buddies, or families who have lost loved ones, that's a big one. Just, hey, I just want to let you know I'm thinking about you today. Veterans Day. I mean, Veterans Day will come and I'll probably get like a text. I don't know what it is. I don't know why people don't just say it. But that's the kind of that makes you feel unappreciated.
It makes you, well, you deal with you have to file this much paperwork just so, hey, I'm starting to have headaches again, right? Yeah. And it feels like you're just pushing upstream to live. And then your wife gets pregnant and your body has an anxiety response. You're like, well, I'm going to have a kid, man. Can I go talk to somebody? No, you didn't file that. Like, so it feels like every day is against you.
Mm-hmm.
Just say thank you on, like, right?
Yeah.
We've all had that birthday that like nobody texted or like one old friend did.
Yeah.
And it just feels like, can you just say happy birthday for God's sake? You know what I mean? And that feels like not very much, but
yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. And nobody wants to walk around their neighborhood and be like, well, you just say thank you. Nobody wants to be that guy either, right?
Yeah.
And so I know that puts you in an awkward situation, but I appreciate that. I can't wrap my head around training, going overseas, not even going overseas, being a part of a gang in the way that military folks are. And then you get out, and then you just like move to a neighborhood. And then your neighbor is like, will you move your garbage can, right? Or that becomes your buddy. Maybe their neighbor's really nice to you. But like in your nervous system, what it's like to have a group of men and women who will die for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then to try to recreate friends, recreate community in the civilian world feels like that would make somebody crazy. Because it's you know what it could be and it's not. And you never get that sense of, whew, how much is the return, the rise of PTSD, just the frustration? How much of that is finding yourself in a neighborhood with a family and still feeling I'm totally alone?
I mean, I'm kind of over that now.
Okay.
But I mean, I still have my quirks, Sitting.
For those of you who don't know, Shawn, that may be the understatement of the century.
But
I got a quirk.
I go from 0 to 100 in about 0.2 seconds. But people aren't going to change. You know what I mean? They're not going to quit bitching about your trash being out early or whatever we're talking about, or that, people are people, dude. And so if you want anything to change, you got to start looking internally, because people are just going to let you down every single day.
If you're expecting them to fix you, right? Or
they're not going to, and they're just not, and so it takes, it unfortunately, like, it just takes a lot of work. Like, you have to, like, it's kind of like addiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not just going to get better. You have to want to get better. Nobody else is going to make you better. You can bitch, moan, cry, isolate, do all that stuff, but in the end, you're just prolonging it all. And so,
just not choosing reality. I'm going to head right into it.
Yeah,
I don't have any friends. I'm going to go find some friends.
Exactly.
It feels like another, and this is life, right? This is life. It feels like yet another job I have to go do.
When you make that decision,
yeah,
things will start to get better.
Right.
They will. But a lot of people don't want to make that decision. They get comfortable with where they're at. They want to hate everybody. They want to, they want to, I think, I'm tough on the veteran community now, now, especially now, like, not to be old back when I got out, but back when I got out, there wasn't any of this stuff.
Right.
There wasn't any of this stuff, now just for
nonprofit support, church groups, whatever.
None of it. Nobody knew what PTSD was. Nobody knew what traumatic brain injury was. Nobody knew any of that stuff. It was just send them out. You want out? Okay, get out. And now, I mean, look, we're talking about it right here. Everybody's talking about it. There's all these avenues that you can take to go get better. And if that one doesn't work, then try this one and try this one. And there's funding and, so, we're back to talking about, I don't feel appreciated and I need a pat on the back every time I walk out my front door because I went to war. Man, the pat on the backs are all over the place. You just got to find them, it takes work. You got to do research. And
so that brings me to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never told you this. So if you want me to edit this out, I will when it's over.
Oh boy.
You and I met up in one of the green rooms upstairs the very first time several years ago. And my publicist at the time arranged for us a meeting. And we met and had lunch together. And then I had to go do something. And most of my career has been spent walking into a room and you get 10 seconds, 5 seconds to feel that room real fast and know, not as are we safe, but know, like, here's the avenue forward. And when I went into that room, you had an energy that was truly, I don't call it a dark energy, but it was a, and I remember telling the person who was my PR person at the time, like, that dude's not all right. Like, there's something not okay between us. Like, and I didn't know what it was, whatever. The next time we met, maybe a year later, everything about you was different. Like, your whole essence was different. And you've talked at length, and we won't go into detail here, but you've talked at length on your show in pretty, I would say, brave and vulnerable ways about your journey with psychedelics, your journey with counseling. You're like doing all the stuff, your faith journey, all that, which has been amazing. But it's a palpable transformation, right? Like walking into a room and, like, that's a different human. The question I have for you is, upstream, at some point you had to say, I need this to be different. What was that? What was that push?
Look, I didn't think I had a problem with alcoholism. I mean, I did, I've done a bunch of steps, John. I did therapy for, I think, 2.5 or 3.5 years, twice a week, phenomenal. Got me off drinking. Look, when I got out of the agency, if you jumped in my car, I would open the glove box and about 50 mini bottles of vodka would fall out. And I'd offer you one, and then I'd take a couple, and I would drink mini bottles all day. And then I'd go home, pull a bottle of fifth of vodka out of the freezer and polish that off and maybe get hour and a half of sleep, get up, do it all over again. And it ruined all my family relationships. Anyways, I quit drinking vodka after a suicide attempt, right? And
I didn't even know about that.
Yeah,
okay.
I quit drinking vodka after suicide attempt. I started drinking wine, which I didn't really feel like I had a problem once I did that. And then let's fast forward. what you're talking about is psychedelics.
When are you back in? Like, so you quit drinking when?
To about 2 years ago, a little over.
So that's right when we met.
Yeah. Quit drinking altogether.
When you start processing it.
Yeah. I quit drinking wine and not strong alcohol. It's about 2 years ago.
Okay. But before that, you quit drinking vodka. How long ago before that?
Maybe 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The transformation that you're talking about or what you saw was psychedelics. And what got me there was, it was a lot of things, man. It was a lot, I'm sure I have some traumatic brain injuries from being blown up. But what really got me was I was not ever in the moment with my family, ever. I couldn't, I had a 6-month-old son and I would just look at him and all these other thoughts are going on in my head. And I would have discussions with my wife and my brain is in a completely different world. I wouldn't
like in a protective world or in a...
No, it could be anything,
okay.
But a lot of it was business stress, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you can relate to that, right?
Yeah.
And then as businesses grow and your name grows, then people start coming out of the woodworks and they want all this from you for free and hey, da-da-da-da-da, like they think that it just showed up. And it got really hard for me to say no to people, and for the first over 5 years of my business, I was giving everything away, all of it, advertising, everything. And I would see everybody just passing me up, and, but it was combat stress. It was TBI, it was business stress. It was anxiety. It was not being in the moment. And
a new kid.
And that's what really sparked it, though, was I was like, man, I feel enraged all the time, and I'm never in the moment, and I just knew I needed something, and I'd been researching psychedelic therapy, and so I went down and did it. I didn't even go down to quit drinking. That was not even on the radar.
Because you knew you weren't doing that drinking anymore, right? And
I was coming home and having a half bottle to a bottle of wine a night, which, isn't good. But
it's
look,
different than drinking a fifth, right?
It wasn't, me and my wife weren't arguing. I think alcohol, plays a big part in a lot of divorces and arguments and stuff. But it wasn't anything like that. It was a decompression ritual, maybe, and that I fell into a cycle that I just couldn't break. But I didn't want to break it. That's not, like I said, that's not why I went down. So I came out of that 1 week and everything changed. I was in the moment. For some reason, it got real easy for me to say no and put my family first instead of people that I don't even know. Like, I probably sound like an ass. Right?
No. I remember asking you, I think I invited your family over for something, and you just wrote back and there was not even an excuse. And you wrote, not going to be able to make this, thanks for the invite. And I remember going like this, like I was like, yes, like he's there. You know what I'm saying? Like it was dude, you don't owe me anything. You know what I mean? Like they're the most important. And I trust that if you can make it and y'all want to come, cool. And if you don't, cool. But it was this sense of, I remember going like, yeah, there you go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it is, now it's here.
Yeah.
Like I don't owe you anything, man.
Yeah.
And that allows me to love you when I can.
Yeah.
All in, right?
Yeah. I try to, when I say no, I really try not to offer any excuses.
Because you don't owe them.
Yeah.
Right.
You could try it by going to you just don't owe anybody excuses. If you go return something watch the return aisle. When's the last time you went, I got to return this coffee mug because this and this. Like, why are you just volunteering? You don't like it, return it. Just practice that.
Yeah.
And then, just say no. Like, you don't have to.
Dude, I was the worst. I blamed my wife back in the day. And I remember feeling like, it was a singer-songwriter in East Nashville called me out on it. Because I was like, I got to go return this, because my wife. And he's like, really? You going to blame her?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I am such a coward.
Yeah.
What a clown, right? What a clown. And by the way, even if she had said, I don't really like X, Y, or Z, which she didn't, will you take this back? They don't need to know that.
Yeah.
I'm the grown man walking this thing back in. They don't need to know anything about her, right? And yeah, just this sense of freedom. But your whole essence is different, man.